Iran signals swift trials and possible executions amid protest crackdown. Iran's judicial authorities have publicly announced fast-track trials and the potential execution of people detained during nationwide anti-government protests, despite mounting international warnings and diplomatic pressure. Senior Iranian judicial officials have stated that authorities plan to expedite legal proceedings for those arrested in connection with mass protests that have swept the country for weeks. The judiciary had declared that punitive measures should be carried out quickly, emphasizing that delaying action would diminish its impact. This announcement comes at a time when the United States has warned Tehran of very strong action if executions are carried out. At the center of these escalating tensions is the case of a young man sentenced to death after being arrested during demonstrations. He was detained in early January and, according to independent observers, has been denied access to fair legal representation or a meaningful trial. Reports indicate he could be executed as early as this week, marking potentially the first state execution directly tied to the current wave of protests. Iran's leadership has justified these measures by labeling dissenters and so-called rioters as criminals whose actions constitute warfare against the state. Under Iran's Islamic Penal Code, charges such as mohariba, meaning waging war against God, carry the death penalty. Prosecutors have indicated that a number of detainees will face such charges and be brought before courts in the coming days. The threat of executions is part of a broader strategy by the Iranian government to quell the widespread unrest. Protests began in late December amid dire economic conditions, including rampant inflation and drastic currency depreciation, and have since evolved into a broader movement expressing political discontent and demands for reform. The government's response has been marked by severe measures, nationwide internet blackouts, widespread arrests, and reports of lethal force used against demonstrators. Estimates from independent counts suggest that thousands may have been killed and tens of thousands arrested, though exact figures remain difficult to verify due to the communication shutdowns and restricted access for independent observers. International reactions have been swift. Foreign governments, including the United States and members of the European Union, have condemned potential executions and called for restraint, emphasizing the importance of due process and human rights. Tehran, however, has defied these warnings, portraying its actions as necessary to restore stability and protect national security. The possibility of executions has heightened global concern about Iran's judicial process, particularly given historical patterns of capital punishment being used as a tool of political repression. Human rights advocates note that Iran has one of the highest execution rates in the world, with hundreds of people put to death annually prior to the current unrest. As tensions escalate, there are fears that accelerated trials and executions could further inflame public sentiment and intensify unrest. Meanwhile, families of those detained live with uncertainty, and opposition voices inside the country urge international attention to the unfolding crisis. At this critical juncture, Iran stands at a crossroads. The government appears committed to harsh punitive measures, while international pressure mounts against the use of the death penalty and for respect of fundamental legal rights. The next few days are likely to be decisive in determining whether executions proceed and how. This will affect the broader protest movement.